Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Petri Dish. We are back again with another exciting interview. Actually, we're going to be talking with Rackspace this time because they did a lot at Ignite. They've actually got a lot of things going on just in general, and we're going to kick it over to you guys. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Absolutely. So my name is Jeff Deverter, and I've been here at Rackspace for about the past 9.5 years and have had the opportunity to launch a whole bunch of different Microsoft offerings over the years, including things like our single-tenant SharePoint, Exchange, Skype for Business, our Microsoft Private Cloud, and then our Azure support offerings. And that the last one, Azure support offerings, we put that out about 2 years ago, and have been steadily adding some new features and capabilities to it. And I think that's what sort of caught y'all's ear a little bit. And what we want to talk about, some of our announcements and the things that are new around here.
Yeah, no, very much appreciate your time as always, especially here later in the second half of the week, because I know, like myself, I'm get ready to wind down for a little bit before a busy week next week. But let's talk about some of those offerings. So what did you guys announce at Ignite this year?
Absolutely. So there were two pieces that we announced. So the first is our offering around PCI compliancy for our Azure offering. So as you know, PCI is how the financial and credit card world helps ensure that data is safe and secure and encrypted in transactions that are capturing people's financial information, their personal PII, their personal identifiable information. And in a solution that is going to be PCI certified, it means that everything along the chain of delivering that application is going to be have that certification. And as you know, or may know, Azure has had PCI certification for a number of years, but when a company comes to Rackspace to have them manage their Azure infrastructure and their application for them, like say a Magento or some a content management server like that, Sitecore comes to mind as well, and it's going to need to have PCI compliancy. Well, that service provider also has to be PCI compliant. Now, it doesn't mean they're coming through and making sure that our cloud-based infrastructure is PCI compliant, because that's Azure's job. What our job is in this context then is to ensure that all of our systems, our processes are done in a way that it's encrypted and meets all of the requirements that the payment card industry has.
Very, very interesting and important for that matter, because if anybody has been watching any of the headlines in the security space recently, well, you probably know your data has already been compromised. So at this point, it's very important to make sure whoever you're working with has that full and holistic look at compliance, and not only that in security, because as much fun as it is to renew my data or my credit card and social security number protections every year, I would like to avoid doing that by what it sounds like working with a company like Rackspace, who can actually help provide that type of compliance.
Exactly, and one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is, even though your cloud provider may be PCI compliant, if you are working, again, say with an MSP, a managed service provider, who is going to store your information about your interactions with them, my gosh, that has to be PCI compliant as well, encrypted and everything that goes with it. So you just can't be too careful. And one of the things we thought was really interesting as we looked into this, now we wanted to do it just simply because we have it in our managed hosting environment, inside of our own data centers, across some of our other cloud offerings, and we wanted to have that consistent approach to security and privacy across all of our offerings. But one of the things we learned is there aren't a lot of other MSPs out there that have a PCI compliance rating for their managed services offering and the systems that it takes to provide that. So pretty unique in this space.
Interesting. And so what else do you guys have going on? I know Ignite is a good place to announce things, but Rackspace has been around for quite a while. What else is happening in your world? What do you see trending? What's kind of the industry vibe that you're picking up these days?
So, kind of like we were talking about just before, in that you can't really apply enough security or enough precautions. Being somebody who's been at Rackspace for 9.5 years, and people were originally in that context just come into our own data centers, the first thing that they would ask for is a disaster recovery solution. solution when they were asking for the servers that they needed to run their application. But it was also the first thing that got cut. And the reason it got cut is because the way that you're able to do that today, or in the old days, was it was really just a duplication of hardware. And that's expensive. You know, they're coming in and they're biting the bullet to be on single tenant bare metal infrastructure or virtualized infrastructure that's still single tenant and dedicated to them. To duplicate that in another data center and add replication software is just costly. But Microsoft came out with a product called Azure Site Recovery, or ASR. Now, that's been around for a little while, but Rackspace has added a service offering where we will help customers configure ASR for their application that's running inside of a Rackspace data center that's running on our Hyper-V offering. So we can take and add that at the hypervisor layer and then ultimately ingest all of the workloads that are running there out into Azure. The cool thing about that, and the reason that it's more cost effective than, say, duplicating all of the infrastructure, even duplicating it with IaaS, is it's just sending the data and stuffing it into a storage account inside of Azure, which makes it pretty cost effective. Up until the point when you need to, I always call it rehydrate that virtual machine into a real virtual machine and start using it, is when you're going to start to pick up IaaS charges from Microsoft. But there's a lot of advantages to that. Of course, when you set this up, you get the first 30 days free on ASR. So actually, ASR has also become a very popular tool to use to actually even just get into Azure. So you enable ASR, you let it suck your VMs over there, and then turn ASR off, and you've made your way off into Azure. But from an ASR perspective for disaster recovery, Rackspace is there to help make sure that everything gets installed and configured correctly. And then we're also doing a fire drill with you a couple, 3-4 times a year to help make sure that should disaster strike, that we can re-enable your application running in Azure just as you had been experiencing it before in your data center or ours.
And I think it's that second point that you're hitting on there, that 3 to 4 times a year, because we talk to people all the time, and it's like, yeah, we have a disaster recovery plan. We got it all documented. I'm like, all right, when did you last test it? And like, 28 months ago. And it's like that's not effective. Because the gap that's closing between best-in-class companies and the second-in-class companies is how quickly, when something happens, you know, their customers don't want to be impacted. And the best-in-class companies can flip a switch and be on that data recovery and backup methodology instantaneously, and their customers never even notice they're impacted. And of course, to your point, if you're not doing that 3 to 4 times a year, then good luck with that.
Yeah, it's super hard to, well, it's not for the faint of heart to configure it and get it running in the first place, but to actually execute the failure under the best of conditions, you know, you're going to stop and really think through this process and make sure that you know what you're doing. But in the context of a disaster, you know, that's why we do, and we call it a fire drill. That's why you do fire drills when you're in high school, so you know where the exit is and you can get out the door in a normal circumstance before there's the stress of an added emergency.
Yep, it's a rare scenario other than if it's like a hurricane coming at you. Most people don't really know when failures are coming, otherwise they would be avoided. So what else is happening in the world of Rackspace? You guys got a lot going on these days. Anything outside of the world of Microsoft, inside of the world of Microsoft you want to let us know about?
Well, my world is very Microsoft focused. You know, there was an announcement a little while back where we've been doing some very interesting acquisitions, and what that's ultimately doing is it is extending our reach farther up the stack. We acquired Tricor earlier this year, and that's allowing us to not just manage infrastructure in a few applications, but actually pretty deep in a lot of applications, especially in the CRM space. And then a recent announcement around our acquisition of DataPipe. That's not a closed deal yet, but that will ultimately extend our reach into all the places that they are that we aren't, from a geographic perspective, or even into some business lines where we aren't as deep today.
Very, very cool. And one last question here that I like to always ask every vendor that we talk to: why Rackspace? Why should somebody look at you all?
Yeah, it's a great question. Ultimately, what you have here is about 6,000 employees, and all of them focused really on a singular outcome of a customer's excellent experience in utilizing the technology of their choice, whether that's bare metal in one of our data centers, whether that's one of our many public clouds like OpenStack, where we were a founder of it, or now with Rackspace helping to run Azure Stack for customers on the Microsoft footprint, or one of the largest implementations of VMware here at Rackspace. So if VMware is your poison, then get it out of your data center and let's get Rackspace managing it, actually acting and behaving as an extension of your IT team. And now, of course, with our recent announcements and being able to manage your Oracle workloads, your CM workloads, and then also to take you into farther reaches of the world with our data pipe acquisition, or even into the federal space, we have a breadth that really goes farther than most others. And what really makes the big difference is what we call fanatical support. And that is, most companies will help you get to the cloud, but once you're there, well, have fun storming the castle. You're on your own. But where Rackspace excels and where our almost 20 years of heritage is the day-to-day operation of those workloads, thinking about what needs to be done on a day-to-day, moment-by-moment basis so that you don't have to.
Very, very cool. And Jeff, if people want to find out more about you and Rackspace, where's the best place to do that?
Best place to start is to go to www.rackspace.com. You want to learn more about our Microsoft offerings, just put a /Microsoft on the end of that. And you can find anything you want to know about us there. Of course, you can find me on all the usual places, LinkedIn, Twitters, and it's just, my name is Jeff, so it's just the letter J and my last name, Deverter. So put a / after any one of those major sites and you'll find me there as well.
Very cool. Well, we appreciate your time stopping by today. And as a reminder, everybody, Petri.com is the place you can find all the enterprise news and tutorials and everything else you would need. And we'll wait for you to join us next time on the Petri Dish.